So we've looked at traditional conservatism. We're now going to move on and look at one nation conservatism. So one nation conservatism is a pragmatic response to what had happened, what was happening in the 19th century. So it's most commonly associated with Michael Oakeshott, but it really has its origins with the great Tory Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli in the 19th century. And basically what Disraeli did was he analysed 19th century British society and he wrote a book about it. And his book was about there being two nations in the United Kingdom, a nation of the rich and a nation of the poor. So what one nation conservatism is it is an attempt to try and bring those two nations together into one nation. And this is done to try to prevent radical, revolutionary and damaging change from taking place. So it follows on in that respect from the paternalistic aspect of traditional conservatism, this belief in the noblesse oblige, that the rich, the privileged, have a duty to do what they can to look after the less fortunate. So one nation conservatives, they still believe in maintaining and upholding traditional institutions. So there is still that belief in tradition. They believe strongly in the monarchy, they believe in the church. And they did believe in supporting the empire as well. They believe, though, that the only way you can protect those is by reforming, is by offering more to the lower classes, if that's how you want to refer to them. So by offering more to the poor, by offering more help to the poor, that is the most effective way of saving the country from radical change from below, which could mean that you will lose all of those institutions, all of those traditional institutions that conservatives hold so dear. So, in other words, social reforms are necessary. Going back to pragmatism now, they're necessary to sort of fend off more radical political changes from taking place. So, one nation conservatism was dominant within the Conservative Party in the mid 20th century, particularly after the Second World War, when Labour had created the post-war consensus, the Labour government of 1945, introduced Keynesian economics, the welfare state, and their promises in 1945 to make those reforms basically handed the Conservatives one hell of a beating in the 1945 general election. So what we see post-1945 in the Conservative Party is the emergence of one nation conservatism. Harold Macmillan was the chief architect of this. Harold Macmillan was a member of Parliament for Stockton in the interwar years in the northeast, which was very badly affected during the Depression, and he developed a series of policies and a series of ideas whereby the government would do more to help the poor. So we can associate with Harold Macmillan Rab Butler. Rab Butler was part of the wartime coalition who introduced the first of the policies of the post-war consensus in 1944, the Butler Education Act. But he was a conservative who was very closely associated with one nation conservatism. So there is this pragmatic support for Labour's welfare state by one nation conservatives post-World War II. And that was the dominant theme and the dominant sort of faction within the Conservative Party until Thatcher emerged as the party leader and came to power in 1979. So their belief in the welfare state, their belief in a mixed economy, part nationalised, part privatised, and their belief in Keynesian economics was all designed to keep the nation together, to prevent the nation splitting into two. And the majority of those would be in the sort of poor nation, if that's how we could refer to it, and they would rise up and want revolutionary or radical change. It was designed to prevent that, so that belief in pragmatism is very closely linked to One Nation conservatism. It has made a comeback in recent years. David Cameron, Theresa May, and Boris Johnson would all refer to themselves as One Nation conservatives.